Before we begin, please comment below and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is in your world right now. Your stories matter to me. The phone rang, its shrill tone cutting through the silence like a knife. Agnes paused, her hands trembling as she reached for the receiver. It was an unfamiliar number. Her heart pounded in her chest, a feeling of dread settling deep in her stomach. The voice on the other end was cold, detached, too calm. "Hello, Mrs. Cooper?" The voice began, a woman's voice with a slight edge. "I'm calling from your son's wedding planning team. I'm afraid I have some unfortunate news." Agnes' breath caught in her throat. She had been eagerly awaiting this call. Her son's wedding. It was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. But this wasn't what she expected. "Your family's invite has been cancelled," the woman continued, her words like a slap to the face. Agnes could hear the finality in her tone. As if it was all settled. As if it was already over. The words echoed in her mind, drowning out the noise of the world around her. "Cancelled?" she whispered, hardly able to comprehend what she was hearing. "Yes," the planner said. "I'm sorry, but there's nothing more we can do." Agnes could feel the weight of the words pressing down on her. Her son, the one she had carried in her womb, the one she had raised, was about to get married, and she wasn't even invited. The phone call ended with a polite goodbye, but Agnes remained frozen. Her heart ached, the pain almost unbearable. This wasn't just about an invitation being pulled. It was about being erased from her son's life, the life she had nurtured from the very beginning. And she couldn't understand why. Her thoughts spiraled, and the room seemed to close in on her. Was this truly her son's decision, or had something, changed his mind? A flood of questions bombarded her, but no answers came. She was left with a hollow, aching heart, wondering if this was a permanent goodbye, or just another bump in the road. The phone call that had started so innocuously had shattered her reality in an instant. To understand how things had come to this, Agnes had to go back, way back. Back to the days when her son, Riley, was just a boy, full of wonder and excitement. They had been inseparable. She had raised him on her own after her husband passed away when Riley was just 5 years old. Those early years had been tough. But she had always made sure Riley never felt the absence of his father. She worked hard, sacrificing so much to provide for him, to ensure he had everything he needed. But over the years, something had shifted between them. Riley grew older, more independent. He went off to college, then started his own life. Agnes watched as he made his way in the world, meeting new people, building relationships. It was a natural progression, of course. But as he became more absorbed in his adult life, Agnes began to feel like she was losing him. Then came the announcement. Riley was getting married. He had met a woman named Jenna, a woman who seemed to fit perfectly into his life. Agnes had been overjoyed. She couldn't wait to meet Jenna, to welcome her into their family. But as the wedding planning started, things began to change. Agnes noticed the subtle shifts, the things that felt off. Jenna's mother was the one who made most of the decisions, the one who took charge of the details. Agnes was never consulted. The invitations went out, but when she saw her name on the guest list, there was a strange feeling in her gut. Something didn't sit right. It was as if her role had already been minimized, and she was merely a bystander in her own son's life. She brushed it off. After all, it was his wedding. She wanted him to be happy. But when the call came, when the words, "Your family's invite has been cancelled," echoed in her ears, she realized the painful truth. She had been excluded from the most important event of her son's life. The days following the phone call were a blur of confusion and hurt. Agnes couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. She tried reaching out to Riley, but he was always busy. He didn't return her calls, didn't reply to her messages. She began to wonder if he even cared anymore. Was this how it was supposed to be? Was this what she had worked so hard for, only to be cast aside? She tried calling Jenna, hoping to get some answers. But the call went unanswered. She sent text messages, hoping they might reach someone who could explain what had happened. But there was nothing. No response. No reason. Just silence. Agnes felt as if she was drowning in a sea of unanswered questions. What had happened to her family? What had happened to her relationship with her son? She had been there for every milestone, every heartbreak, every celebration. But now, when it mattered most, she was nothing more than an afterthought. She began to question herself. Had she been too much? Had she overstepped in trying to be involved in the wedding? Was her desire to be a part of her son's life too much for him to bear? But deep down, Agnes knew that it wasn't just about the wedding. This was about something bigger. Something that had been building for years. Riley's distance, his quiet rejection. It was all coming to a head now. As the days wore on, the pain of the situation began to sink deeper into her bones. The betrayal wasn't just about the wedding invite. It was about everything that had led up to it. And the more Agnes thought about it, the more she realized that she may never get the answers she so desperately needed. It wasn't until a week later that Agnes finally got the call she had been waiting for. It wasn't from Riley. It wasn't from Jenna. It was from someone else. Someone who had been involved in the wedding planning from the very beginning. It was Ellie, Jenna's best friend. She had been the one to organize the bridal party, and as it turned out, she had also been the one to call and cancel Agnes' invitation. Agnes, I think we need to talk. Ellie's voice was quiet, almost apologetic. I know this might be hard for you to understand, but Agnes felt her heart race. She had known something was wrong, but she never imagined this. The words were slow in coming, and Ellie's explanation was just as painful as the silence that had followed the phone call. Jenna had always felt a strange tension between Agnes and her own family, and she had decided, without consulting Riley, that it would be best if Agnes didn't attend the wedding. Agnes' mind reeled. So this wasn't just about a simple miscommunication. This was about rejection. About Jenna deciding that her presence would somehow disrupt the harmony she hoped to create. She hadn't even considered the damage it would cause, the lifelong hurt it would leave behind. And now, Agnes was faced with the truth. Her son's bride had made the decision for him. Riley doesn't know, Ellie continued, her voice shaking. He never agreed to it. The words hit Agnes like a ton of bricks. Riley didn't know? She had been cut out of the most important event in his life without his consent. This wasn't just a wedding invite being pulled, it was a betrayal. And she didn't know how to fix it. Agnes couldn't stay silent any longer. She had to confront her son. She had to ask him the question that had been eating away at her for weeks. Why? She drove to Riley's apartment, her heart pounding with each passing mile. The words she had rehearsed in her mind seemed to slip away with every turn. How would she explain her hurt, her confusion, her sense of being cast aside? Could she make him understand? When she arrived, Riley opened the door with a look of surprise, followed by a hint of guilt. His eyes shifted nervously, as if he knew something was wrong. "Mom," he started. "What's going on?" Agnes stood there, staring at her son. The man she had raised, the man she had loved unconditionally, stood before her. Yet he seemed like a stranger. She had never felt more disconnected from him. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Why didn't you stop her from canceling my invitation?" Riley's face softened, and he stepped toward her. "Mom, I had no idea. I thought everything was fine. Jenna, I don't know why she did that. She was upset about some things, but it was never meant to hurt you." Agnes couldn't hold back the tears any longer. "You should have told me, Riley. I raised you. I've been there for you through everything. And now, on your wedding day, I'm the one who gets pushed aside." Riley looked down, guilt written all over his face. "I'm sorry, Mom. I never wanted this to happen. I'll fix it. I'll make it right." But in that moment, Agnes realized something. It wasn't just about fixing the invite. It was about fixing what had been broken between them for years. The hurt was deeper than she could have imagined. Riley made good on his promise. The very next day, he called Jenna and told her that his mother was to be a part of the wedding, no matter what. Jenna hesitated, but eventually she agreed. The storm had passed, but the damage had already been done. Agnes accepted the apology, but she knew that the road to healing would be long. It wasn't just about the wedding anymore. It was about rebuilding the bond with her son, piece by piece. And though the scars of betrayal would never fully fade, she had learned something vital in the process. Love, no matter how painful, is always worth fighting for. By the time the wedding arrived, Agnes was there, sitting proudly in the front row, watching her son marry the woman he loved. The day wasn't perfect. There were still tensions, still a sense of loss hanging in the air, but it was a start. It was a chance for something new, something better. And as Agnes looked at her son, now a man with his own family, she realized that no matter how far apart they drifted, they would always find their way back to each other. It was a journey they had to take together. And though the road was hard, it was one worth walking. The end of one chapter marked the beginning of another, and Agnes knew that her family's story was far from over. The days after the wedding were quieter, filled with reflection and a sense of bittersweet peace. Agnes and Riley spoke on the phone more often now, their conversations lasting longer than they had in years. The wedding was a turning point, a place where the past and present collided, forcing both of them to confront the gaps that had formed in their relationship. Riley called one evening, his voice soft, as if he were still trying to process everything. "Mom, I've been thinking a lot about what happened," he began. "I know I've let things slide with you, and I've been distant for so long. I never meant for you to feel like this, to feel like you didn't matter." Agnes felt her heart soften, the tightness in her chest slowly loosening. "Riley, I know you're busy and I know life changes. But we can't keep living like we're strangers. I've always been here for you, even when it felt like you didn't need me anymore. I just wanted to be a part of your life. I wanted you to know that no matter what, I'm always here." Her words were not just an apology for her own pain. They were an invitation to rebuild, to heal, and to repair the fractured trust. Riley's silence on the other end was heavy, but she could hear the emotion in his voice when he spoke again. "I want that too, Mom. I've been so caught up in my own world that I didn't realize what I was missing out on. I'm sorry for all the hurt I've caused you. I'm going to try to do better." Agnes didn't need anything more from him. She knew that his promise was sincere. This was the beginning of something new, a new chapter in their relationship. It wouldn't be easy, but with time, they would find their way back to each other. After all, they had already endured so much together, and they could face whatever came next. While Agnes and Riley began to work through their fractured bond, there were still pieces of the puzzle that didn't quite fit. Why had Jenna acted the way she had? Why had she felt the need to cut Agnes out of the wedding, knowing it would cause so much pain? Was it simply a misunderstanding, or was there something deeper at play? As weeks passed, Agnes couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was more to the story than anyone was telling. She had heard rumors about Jenna's family, about tensions between them and Riley. The more she thought about it, the more it seemed like the issues surrounding the wedding were part of a larger picture, one that involved unresolved family dynamics and hidden resentments. Agnes decided to take matters into her own hands. She reached out to Jenna's mother, the woman who had been so involved in the wedding planning. She needed answers. She needed to understand why her presence had been such a threat. When they finally spoke, the conversation was tense, but it was also illuminating. "Jenna didn't want to hurt you," Jenna's mother admitted. But she had her own reasons for feeling the way she did. She was afraid of losing Riley, of losing him to someone who had been so central in his life for so long. She felt like you were too much of a presence, and she didn't know how to handle it. "I think she thought it would be easier to push you away than to share him." Agnes felt the weight of the words. It wasn't about her at all. It was about fear, insecurity, and a woman's struggle to find her place in a relationship where she wasn't the first priority. Jenna had acted out of her own vulnerabilities, but that didn't make the hurt any easier to bear. "I didn't want to replace her," Agnes said, her voice quiet but firm. "I just wanted to be part of Riley's life. And I still want that." Jenna's mother sighed deeply. "I know, Agnes. I know. And I'm sorry for how things have gone. You and Jenna need to have a real conversation. You both deserve that closure." Agnes knew this was the next step. They had to talk. But she also knew it wouldn't be easy. Trust had been broken, and healing would require patience. Still, for the first time in a long time, she felt like there was hope. This wasn't just about her and Riley anymore. It was about all of them learning to understand each other's fears, insecurities, and the love that still existed beneath the surface. A few weeks later, Agnes found herself standing at the doorstep of Jenna and Riley's new apartment. Her heart was pounding, the nerves in her stomach tight. She had never been one to shy away from difficult conversations, but this one felt different. This was the moment where everything could either break apart or be rebuilt. Jenna answered the door, her expression guarded. The tension between them was palpable, a silent acknowledgement of the hurt they had both caused. Agnes took a deep breath and stepped inside. "I think we need to talk," Agnes said softly, her eyes meeting Jenna's. "There's been a lot of pain, a lot of misunderstandings. But I want to fix this. I want to understand where you were coming from, and I want to tell you how I've been feeling." Jenna hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I know I hurt you. And I'm sorry. I let my fears get the best of me. I thought if I could push you out, maybe I would finally feel like I was the most important woman in Riley's life. But I was wrong." Agnes felt a pang of empathy for Jenna. She understood now. Jenna hadn't been trying to hurt her. She had been trying to protect something she feared losing. But in doing so, she had caused irreparable damage. "I don't want to take Riley away from you, Jenna," Agnes said. "I want us to be a family. A family that accepts and supports each other. But we can't do that if we don't communicate, if we don't acknowledge the hurt we've caused." Jenna's eyes welled up with tears. "I've been so scared. I didn't know how to share him. I didn't know how to fit into your world, into his world. But I'm willing to try if you are." Agnes nodded. "We'll take it one step at a time. But we need to be honest with each other. We need to trust that we're all here for the right reasons." The air seemed to lighten between them. This was the beginning of healing, not just for Agnes and Jenna, but for the entire family. It wouldn't be easy, but the wounds that had once seemed impossible to heal were now starting to mend. Months passed, and the tension that once hung over the family began to fade. The wounds of the past were still there, but they no longer defined their relationship. Agnes, Riley, and Jenna had found a new rhythm, one built on honesty, understanding, and mutual respect. At Thanksgiving, they gathered around the table together, just as Agnes had always dreamed. Riley and Jenna sat across from her, their hands entwined, the love between them evident in the way they looked at each other. Agnes looked at them, at the family they had become, and she felt a warmth that had been absent for so long. She smiled, her heart full. "This is what family is," she whispered to herself. "Not perfection, not without struggle, but love that endures." As they all shared a meal, laughter filling the room, Agnes realized that no matter the trials they faced, they were stronger together. And though the past would never be completely erased, the future was theirs to shape. They had learned the most important lesson of all. Love, no matter how fragile or broken, always finds a way to heal.